It's time for this week's aviation motivation. And today we're going to explore a topic at the core of the aviation industry, one that's shaped modern flight as we know it, and see how we can apply it to our everyday life. We're talking about learning from past aviation accidents and incidents, and what can we do about it so that we don't make those same errors again. The idea of growth, the importance of investigation, and how the aviation industry's relentless commitment to safety can act as a lesson to all of us. Now, one thing that sets aviation apart from all the other industries is our culture of analysis. If an incident happens, or an accident, worst case scenario, full qualified teams are sent in to figure out what went wrong. Now, we're talking about big investigation bureaus all around the world. They work together and they don't rush to come up with a reason why this particular accident happens. They rather make sure that they've gathered all the evidence, it gets assessed, and then it gets agreed upon that the cause of this accident could be human error, it could be a system malfunction, whatever it might be. But the point being that this culture of analysis is so critical to the aviation industry and is one of the reasons why the safety record in this industry is so high. In aviation, we've adopted a just culture. A just culture is an environment where people are encouraged to report errors or near misses without fear of punishment. Of course, that doesn't mean that you can make consistent errors and not be punished. That's not the point. However, if we don't have this open communication about things that are happening on the line, then we're going to miss out on some important information that may critically stop another accident from happening. So it's a critical part of the culture within the aviation industry. It's a principle we can also apply to our everyday life as well. When we focus on learning from mistakes, rather than punishing ourselves for that mistake we've made, we can foster an atmosphere of trust within ourselves to figure out, hey, but why did I make this error? What was the original cause that started this error rolling? So having a just culture within a company is one thing, but having your own just culture with yourself and being honest with yourself and say, why did this error occur? And go back and actually figure it out. Why? So that we can avoid making that same error again. History does repeat itself. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from aviation accidents and incidents is the lesson of humility. No matter how advanced the technology, how experienced the pilots, or how well equipped the aircraft, mistakes and oversights can happen. Many accidents have occurred because pilots thought, hey, I've got this, I've done it a million times, no reason why we can't do it again. And it's on that very occasion that it's going to catch you out. When we get complacent, that's when we are at our most vulnerable. There's a famous saying among aviators: a superior pilot uses his superior judgment to avoid situations which require his superior skill. In everyday terms, that means being proactive, not waiting for something to go wrong, but anticipating it in advance and preventing it from happening in the first place. Of course, nothing wrong with having the skill to deal with the problem, but it's far easier to avoid that problem at all in the first place. Let's turn a few accidents into some life lessons and a couple of quick examples here. Let's go back. Tenerife, 1977, the deadliest aviation accident in history, involved two Boeing 747s that collided on the runway. One of the root causes was miscommunication and cockpit authority issues. Out of this tragedy, the concept of crew resource management became standard across the industry, teaching pilots and crew members to effectively communicate, respect each other's inputs, and break down strict hierarchies that can lead to critical errors. If we take a life parallel here, in our daily lives, how often do we hold back from speaking up when we see something that feels off? Maybe in a meeting, a group project. It's easier said than done. When your boss wants you to do something and you don't agree with it, it's not so easy to say, sir, I think this is wrong. The same applies in the flight deck. However, we've made it normal. In fact, we've made it mandatory. In the flight deck, if you see something that's wrong, you must voice your opinion that something is wrong. This is certainly something that we can take out of the flight deck. And I like this idea that we can speak up. And of course, a just culture helps that. You must speak up. In aviation, pilots are expected to say no. They're expected to voice their opinion. If something feels off, it probably is. Air Florida flight 1982. This was a tragic takeoff accident in icy conditions. Investigations showed that certain warnings were overlooked and crew dynamics contributed to the crash. Post-incident, the entire industry revisited winter operation guidelines, cockpit procedures, and standard operating checklists. To draw a life parallel here, this reminds us to never ignore the warning signs in our personal lives. Be they physical, emotional, in a relationship, whatever they are, if there are warning signs there, we must address them. In this case, rolling down the runway, this crew had multiple warning signs. They were ignored. The flight continued and ended in tragedy. Of course, we see this in our daily lives all the time. We have these warning signs. Sometimes it's easier to put your head in the sand and ignore them. Aviation principle here tells us, read those warning signs, look at what they say, and do something about it. It's good to acknowledge reality. First, we must accept that failures do happen. Near misses do happen. And aviation doesn't sugarcoat these things. Experts dive right in. They look at the black box data, the cockpit voice recorders that gets analyzed, and then we learn from these things. Once you see the gap in your skills or your mindset, you can take the steps to do something about it. There's an endless amount of information these days to either build new skills and, in fact, change your mindset as well. A short trip down YouTube will help you in that. The amount of courses available, the amount of books available are endless when it comes to being able to learn new things and build new skills. The thing is, you need to know what those skills are. Where are your shortfalls? What can I do to improve my skill level in this particular area? We see it today with a lot of older generation people in this day of AI. The attitude of, I'm too old for this. Unfortunately, things creep on us so fast these days, technology being one. And if you're not up to speed with technology, you're going to lose out on a major part of life. So close that gap. Get the education, mentorship, or deliberate practice to close that skill gap. Identify the skill, then close that gap. What aviation does, it takes every mishap, every near miss, and turn it into an opportunity to refine our own systems. We can apply that same principle personally and professionally. If you think about it, each of us could benefit from our own accident investigation bureau. But by doing that, we need to be honest with ourselves. Where did I go wrong? Why did I go wrong? And if you went wrong because you didn't have the necessary skill, then do something about it. Go and look at what options are available to narrow that skill gap. So continue that thought process. Investigate yourself every day. How did I do? How can I do better? And what can I do to keep narrowing that skill gap? I hope you enjoyed this little aviation motivation segment and learning from the past.